Andrew Plitt here with andrewplitt.com. If you have not seen the other videos in this series, I want to give you a quick introduction to what we're doing in this video and what this series is about. As some of you know, for the past nearly 5 years I have been in school to become a naturopathic doctor, and I'm currently in my last year, as of the time of filming this video, in my last year of that training program. As part of that training program, we do something called community education hours, and that's where we use projects to help educate our community in different ways of supporting their health. The project that I chose for my community education hours is really aimed toward healthcare practitioners and students, and the goal is to give you some basic Qigong and Taiji exercises that as a healthcare practitioner you can either use to support your own ability to handle stressors, or that you can give as tools to your patients to help them support their health. And the goal for students is also to give you tools that you can use to help support your ability to handle stress and support your general health as well, and all the ways that we know Tai Chi and Qigong can be helpful for people's health. In the previous video in this series, we spent the whole time talking about how to stand and how to do it in a way that helps you find good internal support so that you feel your internal strength supporting you, especially as you're facing stressors in life. What we want to do is take that support and that structure and all the principles that we learned in that exercise and translate them into moving exercises that you would typically think of when you think of people practicing Tai Chi. So these are the slow flowing movements that everyone associates with Tai Chi, but it's really important that we have the previous exercise foundation down so that we have that internal strength to support those slow flowing movements. So in this video, I'm not going to teach you a whole form. There's not enough time in one video to do that in a reasonable amount of time. What I want to do is teach you some old traditional movements that really embody some of the essential aspects of Tai Chi. And you can use those movements on their own as a practice or as a foundation to study Tai Chi somewhere else under an instructor who can help you understand and learn more about Tai Chi. I also have several series posted on YouTube that offer detailed instructions on several Tai Chi forms. So if you don't have an instructor in your area and you want to learn these things or recommend to your patient a place where they can learn these things, you can check out my YouTube channel at youtube.com/AndrewPlitt. So let's go ahead and get started with our first exercise for Tai Chi. Now, before we go into our actual exercises, there's a concept that I want to talk to you about, and that's called silk reeling. And this is a concept in Tai Chi that is just foundational to all Tai Chi movements. So if we don't talk about it before we get into our actual movements, we'll be missing a big portion, a very important part of Tai Chi. Now, this can be a very complex topic, and I don't think we need to get into a lot of the nitty-gritty details of it for us to still get a lot of benefit from being able to use this concept. So I'm just going to touch on it briefly and just talk about it enough for you to be able to use it in your training. And if you're interested in more details on it, I of course have videos up on my YouTube channel where you can get more details about silk reeling. So what silk reeling is it's really just spiral motion, and that can get, again, like I said, very complex within the movement of the body. But we're really just going to focus on it as far as twisting through the limbs and through the torso goes. So we have what's called an outward spiral and an inward spiral. For the legs, what an outward spiral would be is anytime the toes are pushing away from the center line. Or an inward spiral would be anytime they're pushing toward the center line. So that's true of both legs. For the arms, what's an inward spiral is when you're turning the hand so that the pinky is going toward the center of the palm, so a rotation like this. And an outward spiral would be where the thumb is going toward the center of the palm, so it would be an outward spiral like this. And so you can practice that on its own, inward spiral, outward spiral, and just feel the twist through the arm and the twist through the arm. You can do it with both arms at the same time, or you can do it with one arm at a time. With the feet, you can practice that either with the foot off the floor, and you can practice the outward spiral and the inward spiral. And it's important to do that with the foot off the floor first, because that teaches you to rotate from the hip without twisting at the knee or the ankle. So try that a few times, and then try it on the other side a few times. Pick up the foot, turn it in, turn it out, rotating from the hip. And after you get a feel for that, we're going to try that with the foot planted on the ground. So you can just shift your weight to one foot, and you can either pick up the other foot or just leave it gently touching the floor. Just since we're not focusing on balance right now, we're focusing on this rotational motion. We can go ahead and leave the foot touching the floor. And what we're going to do is twist at the hip. So the leg is like this is going to be an inward spiral, so it's like the foot's turning in. But since the foot's stationary, instead of the foot turning in, the foot's staying still and we're turning toward the foot. So we'll have weight on one leg. You're going to bend the knee, again keeping all the alignment principles that we talked about in the previous video, and you're going to sink and turn the body toward that leg. And then you expand out and push down so the leg straightens more, and you turn away. So that's your outward spiral of the foot, and the inward spiral of the foot is here. Inward, outward. So whenever we're doing Tai Chi, if we're sinking, moving, whatever we're doing, we have a spiral going through the leg. And practicing like that is going to give you a feel for how that spiral should be with the leg properly aligned and with the rotation happening at the hip. We can do the same thing on the other side. Shift the weight to that foot, gently touch with the other foot on the floor, and you're going to bend the knee and sink and turn toward that leg. So the angle of the hip is getting more narrow here. And then as you expand down through the leg, open. Sink down, close, like you're drawing up from the ground to the lower dantian, or to the lower belly, and expanding from the lower belly down the leg and pushing into the floor. So inward spiral, outward spiral. And as you do that, you'll probably feel like you're getting a bit of a stretch through the leg, through the hip, as you twist open and twist close with the hip there. And that's part of where the flexibility benefits of Tai Chi comes from. It's that twisting of the connective tissue, the twisting and stretching of the muscles as you're moving. I could easily just bend my leg and straighten my leg, and if you try that, you notice that there's not that twisting, stretch, and feel in the leg or in the hip. When you add that twist, then you get that stretch, all that connective tissue getting pulled and stretched in different directions as you're doing that. So even without going down and doing low stretches, this is one way that we can stretch the joints in a safe way while practicing very simple movements. Now as you do that exercise, of course, be careful that as you're sinking down and twisting at the hip, again, the knee doesn't twist, but it also doesn't go out past the toe. So you have to sink straight down with that good alignment that we talked about in the past video. Now we have 3 different exercises that you can practice to work on that silk ruling and getting that stretching through the connective tissue. And you can do those on your own. You can work on just rotating the arm as far as you can comfortably, get that stretch, pull it in, rotate it as far as you can comfortably, get that stretch. Typically when you do silk ruling in Tai Chi, you don't go all the way to end range where you get the stretch, you would stop before that. But when you're doing this for exercise, for health, for flexibility, then you can go a little bit further. You can get a stretch and only go as far as is comfortable, but you get that stretch, and then you would come back and get that stretch. So you can do that with one arm, you can do that with the other arm, rotate out, rotate in, rotate out, rotate in. So with this, the palm is up and it's going to turn palm down so the thumb comes over the top toward the floor as I reach out. And then as I come back, the thumb's going from down here all the way over the top so that I'm back to palm up. So you can do that with one arm, then the other arm, and then your second exercise would be doing that with both arms. So reach out with both, stretch, come in with both, stretch. Reach out with both, stretch, come in with both, and stretch. And then the exercise you can do with the legs, this is exercise 3 for this video, is sinking and drawing in from the foot toward the lower belly and turning toward that leg. That's your inward spiral of the leg. And expanding down through the leg and turning away from the leg, that's your outward spiral. Inward spiral, outward spiral, and then of course you can do that on the other side, inward spiral, outward spiral, making sure there's that rotation as you sink and rotation as you expand. So I encourage you to spend some time with those and get used to the way those rotation motions feel in individual limbs and then with the arms together. And after you get a good feel for that and you can feel that stretch and you can feel a good supported structure as you're doing that, your knees aren't moving in unsafe directions, you can keep them aligned well, then move on to this exercise.